I actually lived in a country where cinema was not allowed. So the fact that I was in a place where I couldn't do something was also something more attractive. I'm not a specialist in any way, I'm a generalist. And this brings us to a big topic, which is generalist versus specialist. The more constraints you have, the more creative you are. That is for sure. It's not like if you have the whole budget in the world, you make a great movie. No. Producers don't want to tell stories, they want to make money. That's all. Your job is to tell stories, their job is to make money out of it. Simple. And this is where you have to get personal. You have to, because you have nothing else except getting personal. That's the only thing you have to give.
So today we are with Ahmed, a movie director and also author. So thank you for being here. So can you briefly introduce yourself and tell me your background, your studies, and how you end up wanting to work in the cinema industry?
Sure. My story towards getting into cinema is not, unfortunately, a dramatic story. I actually used to live far away from Egypt. I was born in Egypt, but I never lived there. Okay. I actually lived in a country where cinema was not allowed. By the way, I lived in Saudi Arabia, and at the time, now it's allowed, but at the time when I was there, it was there was cinemas, of course, but there was no field to make movies. It was only a place where you can watch movies from outside, but never to make a place. Now it's different. Now it's more open and stuff like this. So the fact that I was in a place where I couldn't do something was also something more attractive in one way. I watched movies that are particularly fantastical, like Harry Potter and all these classical Lord of the Ringsy things, which I have never watched a movie of. I only read the books. And then after that, when I found out that there was a movie about it, and I was like, oh, let me find it. But then I watched them online. I found a way to find, to watch them, whatever that way might be. From there, I discovered that there is so many ways to not only put a camera and show what the person sees, but there's also ways to show something that doesn't exist in the real world, that you can actually create and manage to make it look real in our world, That particular aspect, which I will talk more about later, is what attracted me the most. Like, a dragon doesn't exist, but does it? With a camera, it can. I'm 24 now, so pretty young still finding my way out, But mostly, my background is mostly fantastical. I've started writing fantasy books. One is actually out on Amazon already, but didn't make much success, of course. That's how I started initially, as a writer only for fantasy books. But then I felt like I wanted to do more because I really liked visual stuff more than words. I was not as much of a word person. So I decided to go pursue a more visual way to tell these fantastical stories. But the problem is, how can I get a dragon? There's no dragons. This is where I discovered visual effects. Somewhere out there in YouTube, if you really look for me, you will find something about me doing multiple really bad looking visual effects. It looks bad, but it's just me trying things out and sharing it with the world to see if I can get feedback from other people. Is it believable? Is it not? And over time, I realized, okay, now is the time for me to not only do these shots of visual effects, but actually tell a story with them. And then I decided to take few experimental shots. And I said, okay, this writing plus this experimental shots equals VFX filmmaking, if I can use that term. So this is where I decided to go to France, not the States, which, well, most people ask me why did I not go to the States, because I'm completely English based, you see. But for one, I do speak French because my mother is a French teacher, so that's one thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And the second thing is because France is the leading country for visual effects industries. If you look at the world's leading industries in visual effects, you got Wattever. A lot of people from France like to go to New Zealand, Australia, Canada, top chosen places from France. And I saw that they exactly have the same background as me, So I thought, hey, okay, what about me pursuing that similar career, but in the directorial aspect? So I'm gonna tell stories, but I would like to also combine the visual effects on them, because it's just insane. You can tell a story that is not real, but make it feel real to tell a specific theme or message that you would like to say, in a more powerful way. So I thought that visual effects is more than just dragons and stuff. It's also like, what does it really mean to have a big beast in front of you? Maybe it's not about fighting a dragon. Maybe it's about taming the dragon, Just because something looks intimidating doesn't mean that it's intimidating. These kinds of themes you can already tell. And you can't really do it with, you can, of course, with simpler means, with like two humans, one big guy and one small guy. But of course, with visual effects, there's a more impression that you can have in different ways, And that's my style, just go exaggeration on different things. So yeah, that's my background, visual effects filmmaker.
So you came to Paris to study?
Yes.
Where did you study?
I studied in EICAR. I started off traditional. There was no visual effects because I really wanted to master my skills in directing, which is something I have not known before. After EICAR, I found out that there's many things to learn about, so I left it, took a gap year and did my own movies from there. I did my first movie actually during COVID, which was a very interesting stuff. The movie is called Concord. It is unfortunately, it was an unfinished project as well. Due to the COVID stuff, I learned a lot about an unfinished movie, and it led me to do a lot of movies as well after this as well. I did like an icon little short movie as well called Immigrant.
Abonnez-vous.
C'est quoi ça?
It's a poem.
Poème?
Yeah.
Il veut dire quoi ces poèmes?
I also did another movie called Family Time as well. And then I went back to EICAR in the final year to finish my graduation with the finale movie, third movie, I would like to call it. It's called Underlock, which is a movie inside a ship in the middle of the seas.
أنت لا تبدو سعيدا يا أخي.
حسنا حسنا خنعتني.
ما فعلت؟
And then I left EICAR and I went to the south for the first time, where the visual effects actually are, particularly in Montpellier. This is where the companies like the Yard, companies like Ubisoft, you know, even for video games, they all reside there. And I decided to go there for that specific reason, because now I told myself, okay, I've made some few movies that are traditional, if I want to say that, which means like no visual effects, just fully on focus on what you have around you. But now it's time for me to work with what I don't have in the visual effects sense. So I decided to go make a move to the Montpellier as well, to the south, and go to ArtFx and just focus on these visual effects in order for me to be able to make the movies that I want to make, which led me obviously to the Magic Mind after that, which was an evolution of all the previous movies, mixing the traditional skills and the visual effects skills in a very simpler manner. Fortunately, now I'm working as a freelance with a couple of companies for Utopian Pictures as well, which is based in LA actually. I worked for their feature films as a visual effects artist and sometimes supervisor on set, which helps me work with the directors and therefore gain skills from them as well, like kind of like a sponge, while pursuing visual effects. So my love for both is always there, you know. So this is what I am today, actually. I'm working and studying, you know.
So when you're filmmaking as a director, what do you prefer? Is it directing actors or planning the movie, writing it?
I try to learn every single aspect of it before I called myself or ever try to make a movie as a director. So, you know, in terms of sound design, music composition, visual effects, of course. I used to be a voice actor. Actually, that's how I came to France, actually. Okay. I did voice acting before I went to EICAR. That's something I forgot to say. And then I joined an acting school to fully immerse myself as an actor. The short answer is all of them, because even if my specialty is directing and visual effects, I do believe that it's always good to have a little bit of touch of everything. It's not necessary for a director, by the way. It's good to have an idea so that the way I would speak to every single person would be adaptive to them, rather than me just trying to speak in the same way and it's your job to understand me. I would rather, for example, speaking with the music composer in specific notes, you know, let them find their own notes, of course, because it's their job to be creative and have the freedom. And you'll be surprised that most people that work in a specialized thing, they actually quite love it when you know a bit about what they do.
Of course.
And what happens is that they actually listen to you even more. And that is exactly why I'm the kind of person who likes to do all of it, but without being specialized. I'm not a specialist in any way, I'm a generalist. And this brings us to a big topic, which is generalist versus specialist. Is it better for you to be a specialist or a generalist? You could just be a director and just sit down and do your job with the actors. The problem with being a generalist is that you might not have it easy to find a job. That's the thing. Yeah. I struggled finding a job for a company, and that's why I'm freelancing, because companies usually look for specialists to work for them and to be integrated. If you want to be a generalist as a director, is that it's hard for you to find a job because your skills they're not focused on a specific place, you know? They have to be very wide array, which in one way you're a director, that's good, but the problem is how you're gonna make a living. But this is where visual effects is helping me, because sometimes I'm looking for work and it helps me a lot as well. But even then, I'm not as good, for example, in visual effects as someone who's sitting at there 12 hours every day, because I'm working like 4 hours in visual effects, 5 hours, and then the rest of the days I do a bit of acting or read some books or whatever, and that helps me as a generalist. But that, you know, it's really a big balance. So it's up to you as a director what path you want to take. But I'm a generalist for sure, you know. So
I think I'm also a generalist. All my life I've done different career and stuff. I used to work as a graphic designer in the gaming industry before, in the video game industry.
Okay.
I've changed a lot already. It scares me to just focus on one thing and become like a professional in a specific field. I think I get bored easily, and being a generalist is always new stuff to discover.
That is true. And that really brings others closer to you because they feel like you know their field, you care about their field, you know. For example, on set, people often forget about the sound guys, and I will not lie. If not for the fact that I took a sound course, took music composition, stuff like this, I would have fallen in the same category. I would care about just the visuals and then we'll do everything in sound and post, you know. But I took a course about that and I realized how important it is, you know. So this really helped me understand them, and that's thanks to being a generalist. That's the pro of it, you know. But that does not mean that the con runs away. You still have to find a job, and companies don't care about you being a sound knowledgeable guy. They need you for one job and you one job only, you know. But
that's true.
It is what it is, man.
And if we go back to filmmaking, what do you dislike? Is there any step that you dislike?
Yes, for sure.
Which ones?
But it's the most important part, and it's actually the most fun part. What I dislike.
Productions?
And the budgeting aspect of it, because of the fact that there's so much limitations with it. I know that one must be practical and be honest and be like, oh, but budget is what really squeezes your creativity, which I agree. The more constraints you have, the more creative you are. That is for sure. It's not like if you have the whole budget in the world, you make a great movie. No, not at all. That's not an excuse. So yeah, budget is often a constraint that I dislike, but I believe is necessary. So I would not remove it. But you said dislike. So dislike means I don't hate it. I just dislike it. The budget. You know, I'm always in this table with pre-production and stuff. As soon as the producer comes, I think he's the least person I would like to see in the table. I'm happy to see the DP. I'm happy to see the PD. But producer, I'm happy, but I wouldn't smile widely as much, you know? Now, here goes the budget stuff, you know? Usually they come with problems, but that's their job. They want to make sure everything goes well. And they're the first people to know there's a problem, so I understand.
And so far on your movies, have you managed stuff mostly by yourself, like finding locations, casting the actors, renting materials, or did you manage to delegate easily?
I often give them the tasks. I often delegate. And I don't like to take everything, but I do have my eye on everything, being a generalist, right? So you said something about examples like location. This is something that I think is important, and location is a bit different from everything else. I'll tell you why in a second, but first I'll tell you that everything else I like to keep it for others, like renting equipment. I prefer the DP gets involved in that, especially when you're making a movie that's not high budget and you don't have like a lot of people and you have to wear multiple hats. Wearing multiple hats is not just about, oh, you know what, we don't have enough people, just wear this, do this as well. No, it's more about, okay, you're the PD, we don't have enough people in the production department, so could you help him in, for example, doing a breakdown and really knowing what you can save money in terms of, you know, things like this could really help in terms of delegation when you don't have a big team. However, location though is very, very, very different because location is often the hardest part in filmmaking process. Because I know, not just for me, but I know from everyone, whenever like you have a location and you're happy about it, it's very hard to lock location, especially if you're making a movie in a place that is otherwise not easily found. Like if you're making a movie in a house, even that could be hard because you might look for a specific house. If you're looking for a castle or a ship, which, you know, or a library, which is all that I have done in before. So, you know, crazy stuff like this. And because it's the hardest part in filmmaking process, I felt like a good part of my energy must be given commitment into this. In the sense that the location manager, unless you're paying them full time, but of course you're in a budget situation, you are the actual location manager. The director is the location manager because you know a lot about the places. And also,
you know what you want as a director.
You know what you want. It's good to have people around you to tell you exactly what it is. But when you're looking for a very difficult location, it's like you have to get yourself into this, you know. But one thing is that if you are not a local in the country that you live in, get someone to be your location manager with you. I am an Egyptian, but that comes with its own con, which is that I'm not local. I do speak the language, but I still have not, I was not born here. I don't know the place. I have not been here for 20 years, 30 years like other people. That means that when I speak to a French local person who's been here for 20 years, I ask them anything. They know an uncle for sure, or some random person that you have never thought of that happens to have a place that would suit you. For sure. You know, when you're an international, it's more that you're in the middle of the street and you're like, find the library, find a castle, and you don't even know where you are. You know, but a local person knows exactly what's happening everywhere, so they might give you a lead. So get a local person for your location management, which is the hardest part in filmmaking. And anyone can do location management. It doesn't have to be a filmmaker, you know. It's good to be a filmmaker because you have an eye for how things are, depth and all of that, the location itself, the lighting. all these kinds of things. But I do believe that having a local is more useful, especially if you're going to do it yourself, because you already have the eye. You just need someone who knows places. That's all. That's the only part where I don't delegate. I do myself. But any other part, I like to delegate it to other people while keeping my eye out a little bit more, but being careful not to micromanage, because that's a trap for a lot of people, especially directors that are very like this. They could fall into the hands of being a production manager, being like very micromanaging. That's not good, you know. It's good to know what they do so that you can speak their language.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. But not to do their job. It's just more like, oh, you're better than me at doing this, but I have an idea of what you do. So let me tell you something that I know about what you do so that you can achieve the result that I would like. But it's on you to do it.
In your opinion, what's the role of a director and what is not the role of a director?
The role of a director is to orchestrate a story. That's my answer. I use the word orchestrate here because orchestrate is basically that you're not telling a story yourself, telling a story with multiple people. Think of it like an orchestra. Your goal is to make music for the audience. But you're not making music by yourself. You're making you're making a full thing for the audience. They're basically all synchronized together to tell a specific music. So that's what you're doing. You're on set and you're kind of doing that without using your hands to break the lights like I did. And you said something about what is not the role of the director.
Yeah, so what they do not do. Because like, is there a limit, like if you're a director? Because some people say that a director should only focus on directing the actors and they should not touch the camera, they should not have an opinion on this or like barely, but you know.
When you see in an orchestra, let's say you go to an opera or something and you see the orchestra like normally playing, if you see the guy who's orchestrating, puts the thing down, gets down in the middle of the orchestration and then takes the flute and plays it himself, you would laugh like you were laughing right now, right? And it would be something is wrong. It doesn't look like it's well played. However, if you see the same orchestration, but the difference is that there is a big piano in the middle and the person who's leading the orchestra is playing the piano, do you see something wrong? You feel like it's well included. That's exactly the metaphor that is the same as what you just said. Is that on the first example that I gave you with him dropping his wand and going down, that's micromanagement. That's more like the role of the director is not, if you assign someone for a specific job that you know you can't do yourself, or you can, but you know someone is better than you at doing it, let them do it. Maybe it's not exactly what you want, your vision, but you have to, if you get 75 to 80% of your vision, just let go with the other part, little part for the person to express because they have more experience than you in that specific thing. You see, when you hire everyone or whoever you need for your movie, you look at the script and you're like, what do I need to make this movie happen? And what is my competence to make this happen? You can't do it alone because if you can, you would have done it already. But filmmaking is not a singular project unless you use AI and stuff. That's a different topic. So that's where you need other people with specific experiences that you don't have to make that movie. And that's when you need to orchestrate it with a bigger team. What is your competence to make this story happen? That's the first question you should ask. And you basically measure it. If you know what you're doing, if you're really competent in what you're doing, and you know exactly what you want, which most likely you would, then yeah, do it. But if you're not experienced and you just want to do it for the sake of it, that's micromanagement. And that's the curse of a generalist. That brings us back to the generalist, actually. Because as a generalist, you think you might be competent enough, but you always have to be humble knowing that no matter what you do, the sound designer is not a director, and they most likely do not want to be one. They just want to focus on that, you know? And that means that their hours are more spent than you, no matter what, in doing this thing. So when they suggest something, you know, think about it. Why do they suggest it? If it's a matter of vision, your vision goes because you're the director. But if it's a matter of technicality or something, you know, you got to play with the technicality that they know more than you to serve your story. So yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and I think it also depends on the budget of your production. That's what I usually think. It's like only delegate with people who do better than you. Like if you want to find an editor, you have to make sure it's at least as good as you.
I like what you said. Hire someone who's at least as good as you, but ideally someone who's better than you.
Yeah,
because in the end, you could do it, but you have a lot of other things that you have to handle.
Exactly.
That's well said from your part, actually. Yeah.
So far on your movies, they were all student projects or indie projects. Overall, even when they're students, how do you pay for them?
The first ever movie that I did was a 2-minute movie, right? I saw the Nikon thing, I was like, let me do my first movie with this one because it's a marketing strategy, that kind of thing. And I did that, and this one, my only budget was to pay the crew. I had nothing else. You have to feed the crew, you have to pay the transportation for them. That is the least that will cost you. It was a 1-day shoot. So it was not a lot of budget. So all I had to do was basically, you know, work a weekend job. Took me 2 days to cover that, you know. I just had to sacrifice 2 days of my work to fund for a movie, 2-minute movie. The second movie is called Family Time. The budget for this one was a little more expensive, but it was also in studio. We needed to have 4 locations. Well, we thought of an idea to have, it was in a house, but we needed to have the house to be in like a dollhouse, which means we needed to have a wide shot. We actually went to the biggest studio we can get. We built these houses 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow. And we built a fully dolly track, and we just did it. And the budget mostly went into decoration. The good thing is that it's a silhouette-only movie. You don't see the details except black figures. So we use that to our advantage. So we really managed to get a lot of things for free and make it look like it's something, but it's actually not. So again, with a few weekend jobs, 4 days of work in general, I was able to find for that movie. In general, the difficulty wasn't the budget, but rather how to use the money. The Magic Mind was the one movie that was difficult to manage in the budget, but it convinced me even further that the same amount of money that I had with the Magic Mind, I can do a longer one. You just have to spread thin. So location, as I said, I had to get a library, a big library. And it had to be somewhere around Paris, I decided to go and scout myself. Get a local guide, doesn't have to be a filmmaker, just anyone who knows the place more than me and just help me out here. We looked everywhere, we looked outside the box. I went to different people's, I asked everyone about their libraries. No, 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 no. This is where I can't give you a practical answer. It's more about if you persevere, if you look for something, you will always find it. I found a place in Henri IV, which is a pretty famed school in Paris. I met with the president of the school himself, and he asked me, so why do you want to make that movie? And this is where you have to get personal. You have to, because you have nothing else except getting personal. That's the only thing you have to give. So I told him, the movie, I was looking for a big library that represents also personally a great library like in Egypt, where I'm from Alexandria, where there's the world's biggest library was there. And I said that I would like to find something like this in Paris, and I know it's ambitious to ask of this. And when I said that to him, it was easy. He looked at it and he said, when I was a kid, I went to Egypt multiple times, and I knew where this was going. So Henri IV, I basically got it for free. I only had to pay basically for the person who the night guard, only because the responsible was touched by the story. Do you count on that? No, you can't count on people liking your story as much as this person who really liked it. But if you try to look for something, you will find it. To come back to the main thing is that it's not about the budget that will determine, the movie. Like, the budget is not the limit. It's like, how can you use that budget to make the movie? You can make a movie with any kind of price, really. It won't be the same quality, maybe it will not. Maybe it will even be better if you had less money because of constraints. It's not about the more money. If someone said that if only I had money, that is not a good excuse. It's because I don't have the money that I found actually a better library than this one. For this one, it was not. I have no weekend job, so I asked some personal people, and I got the budget from them. Production companies can often give you a few money as well if they see that you have a promising thing, but there's no straight answer with how to find a producer. Unfortunately, there's no straight answer. Unless you're a known person, there's no straight answer. The only answer is that just as it's hard to find a location, it's the same difficulty to find a producer who's willing to give you a few bucks, because producer is more like a risk taker. It's like, who are you for me to give you money to make this movie, Yeah. Producers don't want to tell stories, they want to make money. That's all. That's their job, and it's normal. It's not something that you should hate. They're business people, and that's their job. And in fact, it should be their job to market your movie out. Your job is to tell stories, their job is to make money out of it. Simple. If you show a personality trait that suits them, meaning you have that business acceptability, you achieve or accept that fact that, hey, I'm here to make money as well. Don't do it for money, but you want to speak their language. Just as you speak the music composer's language, unfortunately, you have to speak the business language with the producer. And you need to look at him and be like, he wants to make money. That's his objective. Okay, so how do I speak in a way that will say that, Okay, so my story will make money because of this and that and that, you see?
Because everything you said and all the movie you worked on, you didn't pay people. I think everyone was volunteer. It's easy to manage a production when everyone is working for free because most people are beginners or students and are willing to work for free. But when you want to make like a proper feature movie, it's hard not to pay people, especially if you want very good people.
The reason why there's volunteers as well is because everyone has the same goal, because they all know what we're all going through. We all want to make movies, but we don't have the money for that, and they understand. So our empathy to make the movies that we want to make so that we can help each other out is a huge part as to why we're doing this. And at the beginning, it was weird for me not to pay people, but when I realized that, I found that it was understandable. But of course, when we're all together, hopefully reaching a certain stage where we can really get paid, the people that you worked with for free, most likely will be the ones that will get you to the industry. It's an investment, it's a risk. That's what people think. So, and I would work for anyone as an editor, as a VFX generalist, supervisor. I do work for free as well.
Yeah, if you love the project and you know,
It's all about that. It's all about that.
L'interview étant trop longue, j'ai dû la couper en 2 morceaux, donc c'est la fin de la première partie. Je vous invite donc à vous abonner pour ne pas manquer la partie 2 qui sortira très prochainement. Merci beaucoup d'avoir regardé la vidéo jusqu'au bout. À la prochaine.